Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marion Boltby, the president of the Teachers College Alumni Association, your alumni association. On behalf of the TC alumni community, I'd like to welcome you all back to campus for Academic Festival 2018, our annual homecoming event. Thank you for joining us to honor this year's distinguished alumni. One terrific thing about this day is that so many of us, alumni, faculty, students, administrators, and trustees, have the chance to get together to learn more about and discuss issues that really matter. We discover that TC really is a life-spanning community. As you've heard, this year's theme is Academic Festival 10, or X. This not only signifies the event's anniversary year, but also, and perhaps more importantly, the question mark that hangs over the future of education, health, psychology, and leadership, which are the college's 4 core areas of focus. Here at TC, we believe that education is always the best hope for a better future, and that we have the resources, the technology, the minds, and the will to help create a healthier and a more just and peaceful world. I hope you've enjoyed the program so far. We are certainly grateful to Phyllis Kossoff's commitment to creating a place for discourse and conversation on education and policy. The Phyllis L. Kossoff Lecture on Education and Policy has helped to establish Teachers College, Columbia University as the nation's premier address for the National Conversation on Education, where top officials and leading experts in the field present their views and policies. We hope you enjoyed the opportunity to hear from today's absolutely mind-boggling, inspiring superlatives out the door keynote speaker, Eric Liu. And maybe, is he here? He just left. But, what? Oh, he had to catch a flight. But those of you who heard him, I think, will take with you some absolutely memorable words and ideas and a real call to action. During the first block of sessions, you had the opportunity to explore several very different areas of study, continuing this morning's theme of 21st century physics and social justice in practice, and also exploring our own health and how STEAM can be used for learning both in and out of the classroom. There'll be much more to think about in the lively and interactive sessions this afternoon. President Furman will moderate a panel on how research can and should impact teacher education. We'll also hear about climate change, immigration and refugees, how we can put an end to gun violence, and why we should be embracing failure on our path to success. You may have noticed that today's panels are completely interdisciplinary. This is just one way we can demonstrate the breadth and scope of TC's research and how many of today's most pressing issues can be solved here at TC. Since we have a very full program, I'd like to invite you to go ahead and enjoy your meal, and I'll be back shortly to interrupt and continue so that we can begin our Distinguished Alumni Awards ceremony. So, thank you. Good afternoon again. I hope you enjoyed your meal. We are into healthy eating here at Teachers College, and it was a delicious and healthy lunch. I'm sorry to break up the networking and the lunchtime conversations, but what we are here today, this afternoon, to do is to honor our distinguished alumni, and we need to move ahead with that. It is one of the things that I love most about this day, the spirit of reunion among old friends and new friendships that bloom here. We have no doubt you will continue to reconnect with each other throughout the day. So there will be more times. There's a closing reception. as well as breakout sessions where you can continue the conversations that you started. Before we begin the awards presentations, I'd like to take a few minutes to recognize my colleagues who serve on the Alumni Council, which is the leadership board of your Alumni Association. I'd like to acknowledge all of the members who are here serving as your alumni ambassadors on campus today. To identify us, we are wearing a light blue Alumni Council ribbon on our name tags, so I encourage you to seek us out if you're interested in learning more about how to stay engaged with the college. And you can find more information about how to get involved with the council in your printed program. But just quickly, if the Alumni Council members could wave. There's a thing. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. And we love to talk about TC and the work of the council, so please do come up and start conversations. The council has several committees that work closely with the Office of Alumni Relations to actively reconnect alumni to Teachers College. I would like to especially recognize our Distinguished Alumni and Early Career Awards Committee, chaired by Jeffrey Putman and Galit Ben-Joseph, for their work that brings us all here today. This committee has the very difficult task of reviewing nominations and selecting the award recipients we honor each year. This is a role that they take very seriously, and as you can see, they've done an exceptional job this year. We encourage you all to think about extraordinary TC alumni you know who are making a difference in their fields. We hope you'll submit a nomination in their name for our consideration next year or in the future. You'll always find the form online on the TC Alumni website, and the web address is also printed in your programs. At this time, I'd like to invite President Furman to join me on stage. And as a distinguished alumna herself, she knows all too well what it takes to achieve this award.
Thank you, Marion. Welcome, everybody. The Alumni Council has done such a terrific job in making this weekend so successful, so thank you all. And I do want to recognize that we have 4 of the 6 presidents who have served on the Alumni Council during my tenure here today. So it's so great. Adam Vane, Patrick McGuire, Jeffrey Putnam, and of course, Marion. So that's wonderful. It's been a pleasure to work with you all. Academic Festival has been a reunion for so many of us. It's just a terrific event, a chance to reconnect. So in addition to alumni, we're joined by several members of our Board of Trustees. I mean, Camilla Smith and Joyce Cowan sitting right here with me. Wave. And of the President's Advisory Council, Tara Uceda and Phyllis Casa. And of course, we're delighted to have the recipients of the Medal of Excellence and the Shirley Chisholm Award here with us at lunch, too. As you heard in the opening ceremony, this day celebrates alumni engagement, and it's been such an important, for me as an alumna, such an important part of being here as president. So many people I've met, I'm going to tear up again, who were actually here when I was a student, who I didn't have the pleasure of knowing then, because we were stuck in our silos. So I tell the admitted students, you know, don't do that. Broaden out, because you could have been friends for 30 or 40 years. And I'm so grateful to have reconnected with you again now that we're here together as alumni. And I'm just thrilled that under Rosella's leadership and Suzanne Murphy's leadership, and working with the Alumni Council, that we have really brought alumni engagement to new heights. We have International Alumni Network representatives. We have our Global Day all over the world. And we have incredible commitment with, as I said, a third of our campaign gifts coming from alumni. So thank you all. Thank the Alumni Council and all of you who have worked to make alumni engagement reach greater heights than ever before. And I know it will be sustained under the leadership of our next president, Tom Bailey, who's here with us again at lunch. The director of TC's Community College Research Center, founder and director. So we know that that our future will be bright under Tom's leadership, and that he will continue to engage with alumni. And don't forget, Tom, I'm an alumna, so I'm happy to come back to these events. The Alumni Council began recognizing distinguished alumni with awards about 40 years ago, and later they added early career awards to spotlight the achievements of recent alumni. Last year, as we began to develop a new civics education initiative, I asked the awards committee to dedicate one of these awards to an alum who embodies what it means to be an active civic leader, and I'm so glad they agreed, and that this year Sybil Jordan Hampton so beautifully fits these criteria. Congratulations to all the 2018 Distinguished Alumni. You embody the best of TC, and you make us all very proud. Without further ado, Marion will continue the program. Thanks, Marion.
Thank you, President Furman. Members of TC's faculty will be joining me in recognizing our distinguished alumni today. They'll read from the citations that are being presented to each honoree. So first, I'd like to welcome Laurie Quinn, Associate Professor of Movement Sciences and Kinesiology, who will make our first presentation.
Louise Ada. Science broadcaster David Suzuki has said of disease prevention and treatment, "Our bodies have evolved to move, yet we now use the energy in oil instead of muscles to do our work." At a time when so many in medicine are consumed by the search for surgical and pharmaceutical magic bullets, you have become known as Australia's leading physiotherapy stroke researcher and one of the most published and cited physiotherapists in the world, by healing and saving lives through motion. Early in your career, you overturned prevailing views about the muscular cause of disability following stroke, proving that loss of strength is the prime disabling factor. You have since transformed stroke rehabilitation through studies that demonstrate the power of strength training and other physical activity to aid recovery. You have improved countless lives through your willingness to challenge convention, for example, by using body weight supports to help non-ambulatory patients walk on treadmills, and by calibrating a patient's physical environment in ways that enhance activity and social interaction, work that builds on the teachings of your great TC mentor, Ann Gentile. You have also made an exceptional commitment to teaching and service, which has been repeatedly recognized with awards for supporting students' experiences. Today, you serve as perhaps the leading statesperson in your field, chairing the neurology program and the Teaching and Learning Committee at the University of Sydney, developing curriculum, conducting lectures and workshops worldwide, overseeing physiotherapy websites, and chairing multiple journals and professional societies. Louise Ada, for turning bold theory into transformative practice, for bringing recovery and hope to stroke victims worldwide, and for your abundant and selfless dedication to colleagues and future practitioners, we proudly present you with the Teachers College Distinguished Alumni Award. I didn't write it.
Am I allowed to say something?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Laurie. 35 years ago, I was a young, enthusiastic, new academic at the University of Sydney, and I had the opportunity to, I got a scholarship, and I could go and do my master's anywhere as long as it was in America. So I went to my mentors, Roberta Shepherd and Janet Carr, and I said, where will I go? What will I do? And they said, that's a no-brainer. You are going to New York to study with Ann Gentile at Teachers College. And I now realise it was a no-brainer. So I had a truly wonderful year here, both personally and professionally. Personally, it was a very exciting time to be an Australian in New York. I think New York had just discovered Australia. Our movies had just arrived, Picnic at Hanging Rock, our bands, Men at Work. And of course, we won the America's Cup that year, the first time it had been out of America for 100 years. So it was very exciting to be here. Of course, one of the first things I needed to do was to learn to speak American. I learnt to order tuna sandwiches instead of tuna sandwiches and tomatoes instead of tomatoes. But most importantly, when people asked me what I was studying, I learnt to say motor learning instead of motor learning, as I would say. And when people asked me where I was living, I'd say in Whittier Hall, and they'd go, where? And I'd go, oh, Whittier Hall. I'd go... It was the combination of the T's and the R's, I think, that really got everyone. But educationally, it was a wonderful year of reading, discussing, arguing, thinking with my colleagues that have joined me today, under the inspiring leadership of Anne Gentile, but also Joe Higgins and his wife Susan Arend Higgins, and Jim Gordon, who has also received this award, and who else? And Mike Podagal, a wonderful group of teachers that we had. And it had an enormous effect on me. It's had an ongoing effect all my career. When I went back to Australia and I was helping to develop our own master's program, I very much modelled it on the program that I'd done here. And not countless, but many generations of physiotherapists have benefited from my education here and the way that it taught me to think about things and understand things. And my education truly, as good education should be, was a transformative experience. So I thank you.
Please welcome Noah Dresner, Associate Professor and Director of the Higher and Post-Secondary Education Program.
Sybil Jordan Hampton. As part of the second cohort of Black students to integrate Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, you faced silence rather than violence. Following the Little Rock Nine, the public had wearied of protest. The media had largely moved on, and as the only Black student in the 10th grade class of over 600, you lived in total isolation. For 3 years, virtually none of your classmates ever spoke to you. Yet you remained wholehearted and participated in integration because, as you've recalled, your parents were, quote, very clear that the worst enemy that you can have is fear. Heeding their advice to forge ahead gently but firmly, you proved you were not to be ignored. You graduated with honors and became a university administrator, specialized in building community and diversity, and recruiting and advocating for students of color. You returned to Little Rock, where you headed the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation, promoting entrepreneurship and funding for public education, launching a study of immigrant families and building an exhibit of Japanese internment camps in Arkansas during World War II. And when you attended your 20th reunion at Central High, former classmate after former classmate apologized to you. You have been named among Arkansas Business's top 100 women in Arkansas. You have served on the Arkansas Ethics Commission, and in 2005, you were entered into the Arkansas Black Hall of Fame. And yet, with this long list of accomplishments, you describe yourself as, quote, a teacher at heart. Because teachers touch so many lives, and young people need to be taught by people who are kind and generous and who are smart. Sybil Jordan Hampton for serving as an extraordinary example of resilience and perseverance, for refusing to let silence still your voice, and for speaking and acting on behalf of so many others. We are proud to present you with the Teachers College Distinguished Alumni Award.
Okay. We have our official.
This is indeed an humbling and exhilarating experience. I want to thank, in his absence today, the lovely Dr. James Shields for nominating me. I would never have guessed that I would stand at this podium on this day, but I accept this award. I really am thrilled. You've heard a lot about my being at Little Rock Central High School and that experience, but the pivotal experience in my life was being at Teachers College. And Dr. Lawrence Crimmen admitted me into the Educating Professions program, doctoral program. And although I did not complete the degree in that program, my life was forever changed because I came to understand that education takes place in so many other settings. And I particularly became very aware that foundations and philanthropic institutions are critical places if you want to make change, if you want to work on ideas that could not be supported in other ways. And so the fact that my career-ending position was as president of the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation in Little Rock, Arkansas, has everything to do with what I learned about the value of doing everything I needed to do to be prepared for that kind of leadership role. But I was influenced by Dr. Crimmen, Professor Schaefer, Professor Laugerman, Professor Leichter, who is here today, Professor Sloan, Lehman, and Finkelstein. What I learned has influenced everything that I have done in colleges and universities and in the philanthropic world. And I will tell you that the most important reason I came to Teachers College is because as a young girl in Little Rock, Arkansas, my teachers in my African American schools talked about Columbia's program, Teachers College program. I was taught by teachers who had come here when there were no opportunities in Arkansas. And so I feel so humbled to follow in the footsteps, but I also feel so humbled to be a rich recipient of that which they struggled to get.
Please welcome Megan Lafferty, Associate Professor of Philosophy and Education.
Etta Kralovic, the Lily Tomlin character Edith Ann once said, "I like a teacher who gives you something to take home to think about besides homework." In your research and practice as a teacher-educator at the University of Arizona South, and in your book, The End of Homework, co-authored with John Buell, you have answered Edith Ann's call. You are leading the movement to restore equality, creativity, and autonomy among children, parents, and educators by banning homework, or what you call the black hole of learning. You have shown that homework compounds educational inequality because lower income students have less access to technology, transportation, and parents with time and resources to help. You argue that time at home should include, quote, things like cultural and religious traditions, while homework interferes with the educational agenda that should be set by parents. This attention to the whole child has guided your career. You established a teacher education program in Zimbabwe to help schools balance their cultural traditions with a new European-influenced post-colonial identity. Your research on teacher education in Finland identified unofficial cultural and political narratives underlying educational practices. And you have channeled more than $3 million in federal grants into your award-winning program to recruit and prepare STEM teachers for Title I schools in Arizona, Mexico border communities. You even took a leave in 2010 from your faculty position to serve as a high school principal in East Los Angeles. There, you helped establish a student-run discipline committee that learned, in your words, to conceive of discipline problems as social problems with roots in the family, the school, and the larger society. Etta Kralovic, for advancing a vision of education that enriches rather than enforces, for creating learning environments in which children can flourish, and for empowering students, teachers, and families to play active roles in their own education. We are honored to present you with the Teachers College Distinguished Alumni Award.
We have the photos.
The photo.
Yeah.
This is fabulous.
You should be in the thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And your husband.
You just dropped it.
Oh.
1 second. Yeah. Put it there.
One more, sorry. Was it upside down? No. Perfect, thank you.
That was amazing, thank you. I would like to thank the Alumni Association for this tremendous honor. It's just a pleasure to be back at Teachers College and to share in the festivities today. My TC experience shaped the way I think about the world and my approach to acting in it. Yet by all measures, it's a bit of a miracle that I'm standing here before you. I didn't do my homework in high school. I graduated from high school with a 1.67 GPA. I preferred the beach to the classroom. When I wasn't at the beach, I was in my debate coach's room preparing for the next great debate, which is the only place where I really excelled in high school. I first heard of Teachers College when I was a senior in high school, and my English teacher, Mrs. Ashley, had just received her master's degree from Teachers College, and she had her diploma displayed proudly at her desk. However, Mrs. Ashley failed me, claiming I made a mockery of her final exam by enacting rather than quietly reciting 20 lines from Shakespeare. Now, my mother was a single mother of 4, and she was not going to hear that her eldest daughter was not going to college. She worked at Lewis and Clark College at the time, where she had free tuition for all her children. So she arranged for me to meet with the Dean of Admissions, who told me if I took 3 English classes over the summer and received a 3.0, I could go to Lewis and Clark. My junior year at Lewis and Clark, I applied for the teacher preparation program. I was committed to being a teacher who could make classes less boring than I found them in high school. I was denied admittance to the teacher preparation program due to my political activity at the time, with the committee concluding that since I was so involved in politics that it would interfere with my work as a teacher. I think Erik this morning would have disagreed with that, but I persisted in my desire to become a teacher, and I spent years as an English teacher building an alternative high school for students like myself. My questions from that time drove me to TC to find answers. Now, I didn't find answers to all my questions here, but I did find a remarkable collection of scholars. I am sure all of us who do doctoral work at Teachers College feel like we were here at the best of possible times. Now, granted, Dewey and Counts weren't here when I was here, but their busts are still here, and I'm sure their spirits still reside here. I was privileged to be here when Maxine Green would have her graduate students over for late-night soirees in her apartment on Fifth Avenue. Jacques Derrida was giving seminars at Columbia, and as graduate students, we spent months trying to deconstruct his talks. Larry Kremen walked the halls while I was here, greeting me with, "So you're the one turning Dewey into an environmentalist." I said, "Guilty as charged." Diane Ravitch was here before her conversion. Ellen Lageman taught me how to be a scholar. She also taught me that there was no such thing as work-life balance in the academic world at that time. I would return home at night to Bancroft Hall and watch my 2 children sleep and reflect on Ellen's words. My advisors here were somewhat horrified when I turned down a tenure track job at Tufts University to go to College of the Atlantic, a tiny college of human ecology in Maine, which did not have a tenure system, perfect for the mother of young children. Now, my story is unusual, but not unheard of. Pat Graham, some of you may know, was herself a high school dropout. But I think my story is important for educators to hear because it reminds us that an educational path is never straight, and our job as educators is to open doors, not to close them. It is also every mother's story of navigating a career path while raising children. It is also the story of persistence, my own and my mother's. I would like to leave you with the thought of persistence today, perhaps the most important character trait of all. It will take persistence and indeed resistance to right the ship of state currently careening out of control, to rid the country of the death grip of the NRA, and it will take persistence and resistance to overcome racism, sexism, and homophobia and xenophobia currently masked in the language of American exceptionalism. So I just kind of wanted to know who's in on that fight. Thank you.
Please welcome Carol Scheffner-Hammer, Professor of Communication Sciences and Disorders.
Gabriela, Simone, Hedo. As Nelson Mandela said, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. As a pioneer in bilingual speech-language pathology, you have addressed the heads and hearts of countless young dual and multi-language speakers. Recognizing that free speech begins with the freedom to speak in one's mother tongue, you write, every person has the human right to communicate in language or languages he or she wants, likes, prefers, and uses. Indeed, restricting language choices can have harmful and long-lasting effects on children with language disorders. The diagnostic and intervention techniques you have advanced to forestall these negative effects have become fundamental. You are a celebrated game changer at each step of the intervention process, from conception through implementation in nations and languages worldwide. You have protected 40 million bilingual Americans by developing socially just language policies and formalizing ethical, harm-reducing standards in bilingual speech-language pathology. Based on your investigations on vocabulary and language development of Spanish-speaking preschoolers with language disorders, you have co-developed a comprehensive 9-week intervention program and manual now widely used by speech pathologists and teachers alike. You have co-authored important studies on services for children with autism in Saudi Arabia and on Italian-English immersion programs. Taking a holistic approach, you have also identified obesity as a concomitant risk factor for communication disorders, noting that both conditions may increase social isolation and depression and limit communication skills. Gabriela, Simone, Hedo, for freeing culturally and linguistically diverse children to communicate effectively, for providing fellow practitioners and educators with cutting-edge tools of evaluation and practice, and for helping preserve and celebrate difference in a time of heated political division, we proudly present you with the Teachers College Distinguished Alumni Award.
Thank you all for sharing this great honor with me. I want to thank everyone, President Furman, the Alumni Association and Council, Dr. Crowley, Dr. Carol Hammer, and all Teachers College faculty, staff, and students who have accompanied me through this life's journey. In the speech-language pathology program at Teachers College, I found my sense of purpose, becoming a professional who supports and advocates for individuals with communication disorders, that is, with disorders that interfere with their comprehension and their expression. I was very lucky to be part of the first course in bilingual speech-language pathology here in the department. What we learned in Dr. Crowley's course reinforced the deep-rooted premise that every person, every single person with or without disabilities has a human right to communicate in the language or languages they want and they use. Regardless of the frontiers people have or have not crossed, language choice is an inviolable right, and clinicians and educators should protect their clients and their students from language policies that disregard their human right of communication. I must acknowledge several professors here who really shaped my career. Dr. John Saxman, he was the chair at the moment and he was my advisor, encouraged me to pursue a doctoral degree from the very first semester. I didn't have that idea in my mind, but he saw something and really encouraged me, and I'm very thankful for that. I was also supported by Dr. Pat Sweeting, who was the clinic director, who, once I graduated, invited me to supervise graduate clinicians here in the college, and that was a foundational experience for my future academic career. And of course, Dr. Crowley, the director of the bilingual extension, who really encouraged me with her enthusiasm to conduct research in fair and valid language assessment for dual language learners with developmental language disorders, and also encouraged me to educate future bilingual clinicians in the Bilingual Extension Institute right here and in the Communications Disorders Department at California State University, Los Angeles. I would also like to thank Janet Rovaldino, another TC graduate who was my supervisor during one of my graduate externships and who welcomed me as a co-instructor for the Bilingual Extension Institute. We have been teaching together for more than 12 years, and our collaboration strengthens every year. And lastly, I want to thank and acknowledge all my graduate school peers, my friends, my family, those who are here today, and those who are not and who are far away. Their love and presence make every day meaningful. Muchas gracias, everyone.
Please welcome Lena Ver Delhi, Professor of Clinical Psychology, who will introduce our first Early Career Award.
Bradford Manning, when you and your brother Brian were diagnosed with a genetic disorder that has since left you legally blind, your parents assured you that you could do anything. And so you have, from high school swimming and college water polo to learning Mandarin and starting successful careers in finance. Yet, even mom and dad were flabbergasted when you told them you're going into the fashion business. Not because they thought you lacked vision, lowercase, or even vision with a capital V, but rather, as your father put it, because you guys are both such terrible dressers. Not true, right? Nevertheless, you had a plan, beginning with your decision to study clinical psychology at Teachers College in order to help others thrive after setbacks. Losing one's eyesight is terrifying to a lot of people, you've said. We are lucky to have parents who taught us to embrace challenge rather than avoid it, because challenges are where you grow and find fulfillment. That outlook has been invaluable in creating and leading Two Blind Brothers, which creates ultra-soft designer clothes like t-shirts with words like brother, vision, and feel woven into the sleeves in Braille. If you don't know Braille, that tag feels like breadcrumbs, you've said, but to someone who is not sighted, it's like reading poetry. Recognizing that these are revolutionary days in medical science, with possible cures in the offing, you have donated 100% of your net profits to medical research on blindness, which affects roughly 10 million Americans. Just as importantly, you have raised awareness about and within the vision-impaired community. Following appearances on Ellen and on NBC, you and Brian became not just well-known entrepreneurs, but spokesmen and community builders for the blind. Bradford Manning, for demonstrating how to turn challenges into opportunities, for placing people above profit, and for being a role model for the sight-impaired and the sighted alike, we proudly present you with a Teachers College Early Career Award.
Thank you very much.
Let me
Well, the professor basically said everything I was going to say. So, no, this is a great honor. I'm so grateful, not only for the award, but for the experience I had here at Teachers College. This award is particularly sweet because I do this project with my younger brother and as a competitive older brother. This one's definitely going on the front door because it's got my name on it. But, you know, our story started when I was 5 years old. I was walked into a doctor's office with my mother, and the doctor said that I had a rare condition called Stargardt's disease, where you lose your center vision over time, but you keep your peripheral vision. And at that time, the doctor said to my mother, you know, your son's going to lose his eyesight, take him home and teach him Braille and prepare for him to go blind. And even though that was a rough beginning and a rough moment, our story is not a sad one. We had a great upbringing. I had the right parents, I had the right resources, and my brother and I were able to have good academic careers and then work careers, and I was able to come here to Teachers College and wanted to act further on that mission to help others. But when my brother and I were walking around about 2 years ago talking about some of the research that's going on, particularly in gene and stem cell therapy for retinal eye disease, and we were in a Bloomingdale's shopping. And one thing about being blind or visually impaired is you pay a lot of attention to touch. So when we shop, we kind of like run around like we're 5 years old and touch everything. And then you do the work to find out, you know, if you can afford it and you like how it looks and you like the brand and the size is right. And we ended up walking out with the same shirt. And we, as a coincidence, and we realized in that moment that maybe there was something to this, the sense of touch as it relates to apparel. And that's when we decided to start this project that was going to be a part-time charity project to give the profits back to retinal research. And we spent the first few months harassing our close friends to buy shirts, which was a lot tougher than you would think. And but one of the things that we did not expect is we started to get this attention on the project, and that sort of snowballed until we had a great opportunity to be on the Ellen DeGeneres show and a couple other things like that that totally changed the trajectory of the project, because now it wasn't just a side small project. It was, we were developing a community, and we were hearing from people that had gone through our experience. And for us, we actually did not anticipate this part of the project, but for us it was so rewarding because we could actually speak to the parents and the families that were going through that experience we went through 25 years ago, and it was almost like you could go back and give advice to your former self and show them that you didn't need to feel hopeless in that particular moment. So one of the things I think is really interesting, trying to figure out, why we've been so lucky and fortunate to have the early success on this project. And I think a couple things that are fascinating is one, we're a brand, so we fight for people's trust and attention every single day. And I think two of the things that have helped us a lot are, number one, storytelling. And one of the things about that you learn is the more personal, the more universal. And those kind of rules of self-disclosure are things that we talk about in the psychology programs and the teaching programs here. And that connects you to other people. And if you're thinking from a business standpoint and from a brand standpoint, that's very, very powerful. And then the second thing is, I think one thing that's being underutilized by a lot of businesses is doing good and doing for others. And it's not just the right thing to do, it actually is good business now because it's scalable. When we have that meaningful conversation with that mother, or we put out a piece of content on social media that talks about vision impairment, the audience might look at that and say, that's useful, that's valuable. But if we do it 10 times or 100 times, they might start thinking they're useful and they're valuable, and then they'll think of us when they go to make that purchase. And we just feel so fortunate. A lot of those lessons are the empathy, the listening skills, to be stewards of those 10 million people who have retinal eye disease, and those are a lot of the lessons that I learned here in my experience at Teachers College, so I thank you guys very, very much.
Please welcome Mary Mendenhall, Associate Professor of Practice, who will introduce our final award of the afternoon.
Thank you. Tabu Musubi, as professor and now dean and head of school at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, you advocate for what you call transgressive education, urging teachers to incorporate into their practice the politics, narratives, and identities that shape their students' lives. In a sense, you have been engaged in such work your whole life. En route to becoming the youngest university dean in South Africa, you faced a childhood under apartheid, a complicated family life, and a lonely adolescence among your wealthier white peers. Yet, as if those weren't difficulties enough, you also repeatedly challenged the status quo, declaring, "Social justice is my passion. Every project I get involved in has to be about empowering people and challenging assumptions." In high school, you used your lunch money to organize a hockey program in your township, and you founded the first integrated student debating league. As an undergraduate at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, you created a program to teach leadership skills to teens in rural secondary schools. And after you met with the dean to complain that students were being shortchanged by an insufficiently challenging education curriculum, a faculty review and curriculum revision soon followed. A year after you graduated from Teachers College as a Fulbright Fellow, you became the first TC alumnus to be named a Gates Cambridge Scholar, earning a PhD in sexuality education at Cambridge University. Today, you use your position as an advocacy platform to remind educators of their moral and ethical obligation to teach about issues of difference. Through your teaching, research, and community leadership projects, you are breaking taboos about sexuality and gender in Africa. Tabu Musubi, for being an international voice on youth, sexuality, and gender issues, for modeling the use of education as a means to social justice, and for never, ever taking the easy way out, we proudly present you with the Teachers College Early Career Award.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, what an honor. I am highly privileged and honored to be receiving this recognition from this marvelous institution. In fact, when I first heard that I had received this award, I was in tears because I never imagined in a million years that a person like me who has a story like mine would ever get such recognition. This institution is an institution that has a rich history and a history that I'm very proud of. It has powerful scholars who are preeminent and who inspire excellence. And in fact, when I was here, I got a lot of my academics and professors who were encouraging me to pursue social justice and to pursue queer issues. It is through that pursuit and that interest that, in fact, a fire was lit in my heart to try and fight for those who are powerless, to touch the lives of people who were, in fact, disenfranchised, those whom society had decided to silence. In fact, it's very funny that I stand here today because, as I've said, I didn't think that a person like me, who has a background like mine, would ever see a moment when they can come and receive an award like this. I was born in a small town in South Africa called Ndabamhlophe. It's a small village of less than 10,000 people. My mum, when she had me, she had to drop out of school because obviously she had no money and the family expected her to get money for us to have food. My dad at the time had to go and study further to get a degree to become a teacher. So therefore, my early upbringing was very much a life of poverty. It was only after my dad completed his diploma in education that we were able to finally have a family and to finally have food on our table. For the first time, I met a white person when I was aged 13. When I would sit driving towards the town of Escort, I would marvel at the beautiful houses that white people had, at the fields that they enjoyed, and at every resource that was around me, but it's something that I could not have access to. And finally, when I got to grade 8, my mom and my dad decided that they wanted to put me in a school that was diverse. It was at this stage that I, in fact, learned about what it meant, in fact, in essence, to pursue whiteness, because in this school, we were told to become like white people. We're told to assimilate. So everything that was white was painted as good, and everything that was black was painted as very, very bad. So in essence, everything I wanted to pursue was to become a white person. I then battled with issues of identity, and I suffered quite a lot in high school. I tried 3 times to commit suicide because I had started gambling, and my parents had had enough of my bad gambling habits, and they decided that, in fact, that the police should come and beat me up and lock me up in jail for a few days so that I could actually learn a good lesson. Why am I telling you the story? I'm telling you the story because there are many others like me who actually society will cast aside and they'll say, those are thugs, Those are criminals. They don't deserve to be in a place like this. Yet I am here today sharing the story with you. I want to say that if in every opportunity that you get, the person that you see as a thug, as a criminal, as somebody who can be sidelined, I want you to use that opportunity to give them a chance, because it's only when somebody gives you a chance that you can actually be something. If you walk around and if you're not given an opportunity, a chance to be something, you will never get to be where I am today. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to just say thank you to Portia Williams, who nominated me for this award. I'm very grateful to Marian Baltby, who has been a pillar of strength. Where's Marian? There. When I first got here, she was one of the people who took good care of me. I learned a very tragic news coming from South Africa when I was a student here, and she was one of the people who brought me in, along with friend Vrevres, who's no longer here, Leslie Bartlett, Nancy Lesko, and many others who supported me through my journey. I want to thank this institution, Dr. Susan Furman, for sterling 12 years of being at the helm of the institution. And I thank all of you for recognizing me in the way that you have. Thank you so much.
All right, just one more round of applause for all of our award recipients today. Everybody else. If you can stand, everybody else can stand. Well, if you aren't inspired after hearing from our 6 honorees, I think you're dead. This is just absolutely marvelous, every single one of them. Thank you. Thank you so much for accepting. We look forward to receiving your future nominations to help us identify the next group of alumni who will join the ranks of these 6 distinguished alumni. And you will know it is not going to be an easy feat to match the caliber of the distinguished alumni we've honored today. But we know that there are so many alumni out there who are making an impact all across the world. I'm also excited to announce that Teachers College and the Alumni Council will be adding a new award to the roster. Over the summer, we will begin to collect nominations for the Alumni Award for Outstanding Service, which will recognize a TC graduate whose volunteer service to the college goes above and beyond. So think about it and be on the lookout for information this summer, and think about the TC alumni that you know who have given exemplary volunteer service to the college. We look forward, and that we will be awarding that next year for the first time. So at this time, I'd like to ask you to consult your programs to find the locations of department showcases, which will all begin promptly at 3 o'clock. We hope you enjoy the rest of the day's activities, and event staff will be along the way to help you find your way back to the classrooms of TC. Thank you all very much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you next year.